guests and audience members. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Hydrogen Opportunity in MENA, Accelerating Export Projects and an International Market. As your host, my name is Julie Ying, Assistant Content Analyst at Leader Associates. Thank you for joining me this Wednesday afternoon. We are excited to announce our partnership with the Connecting Green Hydrogen MENA 2024, which is said to be the largest hydrogen event in the MENA region. It will be held in Dubai from April 23rd to 25th, 2024, and will host over 3,000 participants and more than 150 world-class speakers, including decision makers, energy ministers, and CXOs from more than 50 countries. The MENA region is making significant progress in its pursuit of a sustainable energy future. The webinar will focus on the latest low-carbon hydrogen initiatives in MENA, the driving policies behind them, and how nations and companies are aiming to create an export roadmap that will promote global energy transition while simultaneously fostering local economic development. Our agenda for today includes keynote speeches from the International Energy Agency, Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, Government of Morocco, and German Agency for International Cooperation. Before we get started, please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared and posted online. We will also have time for Q&A after every presentation, and you're welcome to ask your questions in the chat or Q&A box. We will do our best to answer all of them during the Q&A section. With that, I'm pleased to introduce the Managing Director of Gas and Oil Technology Collaboration Program, IEA Global Innovation Network, Mr. Jostein Dahl Karlsen.
Let me see if I can share my presentation here.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity, Julie, to address this important forum. I will say a few words on the next generation energy investments relative to oil and gas. Clearly, this year is important to all sectors of the energy sphere, where 2022 marked the highest accumulated emissions of CO2 to date, and it really puts technology on a critical path for acceleration. And this is really a challenge to all in the global community moving ahead. Of course, perspectives from energy history provides important learning. The past 100 years, we've witnessed major transitions from biomass via coal to oil and gas. And while these transitions has taken place, the energy demand has increased 20 times the last 100 years. This is significant development, and there's been a transition to electron-based energy via renewables have been long on the agenda, at least for 50 years. But as you can see, it takes time.
To do the same, just take a screenshot.
Excuse me?
I do this when I go to this.
So energy security is important on the pathway to net zero, in particular after the Russian aggression on Ukraine. So really is towards the energy trilemma that we need to balance energy security, affordability, and transition. And this is key for, I think, all our efforts across the energy chain. So I will try to, in particular, the energy security in Europe, replacing Russian gas is a major backdrop to the oil and gas sector. Here you can see to the left side the downfall of Russian gas in last year. and the increase that other resources of natural gas supply has replaced the Russian supply. To the right hand, you can see from what origins these supplies are from. So we have seen a major gas-to-gas competition instead of renewables filling in the space. So really, that has been a major game changer to the oil and gas sector. That security of supply is a long-term challenge and paradigm for the sector. And also, GOT works on looking at how IEA can work in this space. And we're looking at the largest energy economy of Europe, Germany, and to see how the energy development will take place moving ahead. Okay, of course, synchronizing supply and demand requires major trade across regions. And as we look at managing the transition, this probably will be an important prerequisite. You can see in the blues dots here, demand, and the red supply. And for Europe, for instance, there's a huge imbalance in the longer term. And of course, against an increasing demand in Asia. So to have a broader coordination of supply and demand is going to be important, like we saw last year. Not only warmer weather in Europe helped European to build up European gas storage, but also cargo. So LNG that was destined for Asia was reshuffled back to Europe because of less demand expected in Asia. This may not be the case in the future, so this is an important watch point moving ahead. Climate funding remained huge, and today's market design policy frameworks are not bringing forward the necessary investments. What we see is that before there's a major global price on CO2 established, there are a need for early movers to be leading in the transition in new value chains and through new early mover alliances. And we see this as the foundation for what is becoming an important focus for hubs. So GOT has been active on around 25 events globally to date. But we are now reframing our focus more from upstream to the transitional space, looking at energy transition hubs against the background I've pinpointed. The virtual value chain looks like the artist impression in front of you. We're looking at electrification opportunities for oil and gas offshore assets, and also, of course, onshore assets. And also decarbonization, and from a source to sink point of view. Of course, the new energy economy seen by, this is a slide by IEA World Energy Outlook 2021, is going to be important forecasting the way ahead, where hydrogen and critical minerals will play a very dominant role in the development towards net zero. Of course, turbines are getting ready to be run on fuel by hydrogen at different scales and mixes. And we're having a session later this afternoon with turbine developers to understand what it takes to make this commercially available in large scale. For energy transition hubs, there are major, we have, as a global program, this is important to have, to follow from a cross-regional point of view. and it's not enough only to have a lot of resources. This map shows 3 types of hubs. The green are the leading ones. The orange are those that can be candidates into leading, and the red are those that will be lagging behind from different reasons. And in addition to have access to resources, to become a leading hub, there is need to have progress on 3 major pillars, in addition to foundation enablers, which connects clean producers to clean consumers, and connecting infrastructure that makes hubs a physical place for acceleration of technology. And of course, the Gulf region has major ambition for hydrogen. And as you can see, many of these are in the coastal space because of the ability to ship commodities long haul. And of course, we witness there are still some roadblocks in realizing these the hydrogen economy from these hubs. I've here shown a picture of the Aramco CEO with the target of 11 million tons of blue hydrogen by 2030. But according to announcements, there are still a job to do to secure offtake for these volumes, because markets like in Korea, Japan, still lack the correct proper incentives for actually consuming or becoming a true market. We see in other parts of the world, like in Northwest Europe, there is a physical infrastructure emerging. Here you can see a hydrogen pipeline under planning from Norway to the north coast of Germany. And you can see also various players around with different ambitions and activities in Northwest Europe. This is a quite exciting development we are following. The silent revolution here is that oil and gas super majors in Europe are vanguards, as you can see from the top part of the chart, which showing investments in the Dutch energy transition, and that Shell is really the biggest investor in transitional technologies such as offshore wind. And Equinor is operating by the 6th year, the largest wind farm. So there's really a lot of interest to follow transitional trends in the oil and gas industry. Life cycle assessment is important if you talk about hydrogen. To the left, you can see the energy penalty or energy fraction of the cost base producing hydrogen. It's a significant part of the cost. So we have a project, we're looking into what this means of producing hydrogen from a life cycle perspective. And this has been tested on the largest economy in Europe, Germany. And the pathway example here is what it takes to replace Russian gas with green hydrogen. That means that if you the peak use of gas from Russia was around 90 BCM of natural gas, which means you need 30 million tons of hydrogen. And then we look at what this means in terms of extra electricity required to produce that. For 30 million tons, you would need 1,500 terawatt. And what is 1,500 terawatts? It's equal to 20 billion electric cars electrified, or 11 billion of the biggest parks, battery parks in the world. And related to Germany, planning for 300 gigawatt of solar and wind addition by 2030. You need to multiply by a factor of 1,000 to reach the terawatt size, and we talk about approximately half of the combined electricity production of Europe. So we might need another energy crisis to fuel this. We don't think this is a meaningful approach, and probably the hydrogen rainbow will need to have more colors than only green. Of course, look at cost sensitivity of production volumes. Also from renewables, you can see that for offshore wind, which is probably the most prolific resource, when you hit the upper limit of the cost curve here relative to 30 million tons, it's really prohibitive in terms of cost. And even if you only cover a part of this by hydrogen, like for instance 15 million tons for solar, this is also quite a challenge. So we believe that there's a huge case for blue hydrogen in Europe and probably globally. And here you can see a scheme with the CEO Equinor and the largest utility in Europe, RWE, signing MOU together with the Norwegian Prime Minister and the German Vice Chancellor present, for extra natural gas pipe to Germany, and in the 2030 to allow for fuel switch from coal to natural gas, and in a 10 years perspective, probably also a switch to blue hydrogen and taking the CO2 back to Norway for storage. We are intrigued by these perspectives, and we are planning a new energy transition summit where we would like to investigate this pilot more specifically in Europe, maybe in Berlin or in Brussels. And of course, this has pan-European implications because Germany will need to import a lot of energy. And we're looking at, we also see that other countries planning for hydrogen are facing significant energy needs. So we're also looking at a longer-term initiative to understand the European consequences of an energy transition in terms of energy security and sustainability combined. And we're currently talking to Eastern European governments to see if there's also a partnering possibility to push this initiative. Of course, infrastructure, natural gas provides an immediate swap to a hydrogen infrastructure. Currently, natural gas network is dense and meshed in Europe, more than 80,000 kilometers, and maybe as lots as 60,000 kilometers of this is amenable to repurposing for hydrogen. And it will take time to achieve a dense hydrogen network, and the world doesn't have that time. By 2030, major cuts will have to be realized in the UNFCCC ambitions, not to speak about 2050. So we believe that this is an important opportunity for cutting emissions in time and allowing a just transition. Of course, US hydrogen shot target by the IRA package just recently announced is important to drive down cost. And the US has the major hubs both on the East Coast and West Coast, connected with a significant network, as still the largest natural gas market in the world. So we're following this by interest. And of course, solar and wind power production cost from a Middle East and North African perspective is really interesting, where you see the red and warm colors are the low cost areas. And we are excited to explore further the prospects here. Of course, existing infrastructure is too big to ignore. So this is not only about power, but industry, transport, and buildings are key emitting sectors that need to be mitigated. And of course, in Asia, 80% of existing coal power capacity was built in the past 20 years and will have a lifetime of 40 years. So it's very important to have strategies for the existing infrastructure. So we believe that connecting to the CCS value chain is paramount. And of course, you can see CCUS is very important in the hard to abate sectors. And but we see from Norway that it's taken a 40 to 60 years timeline from pilots to where we are today. And this really need time to market, really need to accelerate. And this has to do with current policy mindset, which needs to be adopted to future value chains. And of course, we see that the CO2 quota in Europe is increasing and attracts more attention. And also the German contract to difference regime announced just recently is a very important addition to response to the US package, but also to the hydrogen project in Europe overall. So realizing CCS in Norway has taken us through the pilots to the left and the Longship project, where you take CO2 from the Breivik and the Celsio plants and the eastern part, and then shipped by ships to the Northern Light facility, and then piped out 2,000 kilometers out and then stored. Also, the Yara Sluiskil facility with ammonia is now providing CO2 to the Northern Light. And at the Breivik cement factory has attracted very large degree of media attention. This is the German visit by the German Vice Chancellor in January this year, amongst a lot of snowy weather, and a huge pack of German journalists that are interested to understand how the cement industry and the German cement giant is decarbonizing. And of course, cement is by far the most produced material in the world. It's important to introduce CCS to this as a hard debate sector, and this snowball is rolling. So this is the global ambition by the Heidelberg Group to apply CCS from the experience of the first of kind pilot in Norway. And of course, the next generation major emitters, early markets, also is very interesting with the Wintershall Equinor partnership, linking the biggest emitters in Europe to the biggest storage potential in Europe. So we're following with interest this mega trend, which could make a huge difference to the net zero efforts in Europe. And I mentioned Yara. And finally, of course, we believe that the Middle East, North African sector has a long-term potential to be in the lead from a net zero perspective. So with that, I thank you for your attention.
For audience who join us today, please feel free to raise your questions in the Q&A box. And Mr. Karlsen, here's a pre-collected question for you from our audience. What do you think is the #1 enabler and #1 blocker in developing a robust hydrogen economy in MENA region? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that as I mentioned, the potential is really there in terms of resources, the players, and ambitions. The hydrogen economy starts with the consumer. So you really need a major producer to consumer network to kick off the hydrogen economy. And that would require a physical value chain, which is based on contracts that allows for hydrogen volumes to be available, but also for the proper investments to take place. This is currently not in place as of now. So I would say that is a major aspect that needs to be worked on to kickstart the hydrogen economy. And I think that's not only the situation for the MENA region, that is overall. It's really there's been a lot of a number of false starts just because the technology has been promising, but haven't had the overall taxonomy for the linkage to the market.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Karlsen. Thank you again for your insightful instructions and for attending the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's welcome our next speaker, Mr. Wael Abdel Moati, a gas industry expert at the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries. He will enlighten us on the role of oil and gas sector in transition to a hydrogen economy. The floor is yours, Ms. Moati. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for your kind invitation to my organization, UABIC, the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, to today's event to share our insights on the latest developments of hydrogen in the MENA region. I represented the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries. Briefly, it's an intergovernmental organization established in 1968 in the state of Kuwait. We encounter 11 member countries, and the 5 member countries from our members are already members in UABIC. Just to simplify my presentation today, I will speak about 3 main aspects. The first one, what are the hydrogen policies and the targets in the Arab region? The second one, what are the success factors that we believe it will help us in order to develop the hydrogen economy in the region? And finally, what are the latest hydrogen production and export plans from the MENA region or Arab countries in particular to other regional and the global markets? I would like to start my presentation using this photo, which was taken in 1964, which represents the first commercial LNG cargo. At that time, it was loaded from Algeria, which was #1 or the pioneer in the LNG trade, and was unloaded in United Kingdom. More than 5 decades since 1964, many Arab countries have joined the LNG club, and today we are representing about 30% of the global LNG trade, thanks to the huge liquefaction capacity in Qatar, Algeria, and the other countries, including Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Egypt as well. So the question is today, why MENA region or Arab countries would like to invest in hydrogen? Since we are a big player in the market and we are producing oil and oil products as well as gas and LNG. So why we would like to invest in hydrogen? In fact, the answer of these questions lies between 2 points. The first one, to play a role in the potential future hydrogen market. Many Arab countries have shown their interest to export hydrogen, again, to emphasize in our historic role as a reliable, sustainable, and long-term supplier of energy forms, whatever it is, so gas, LNG, or hydrogen in the future. And second one, in order to reduce also the reliance on the fossil fuels in the MENA region, in order to decarbonize some sectors in line with the decarbonization goals and targets set by some governments and state-owned companies. Looking to the current hydrogen ambitions and target in the Arab countries, Algeria recently published the hydrogen strategy and would like to have about 10% of the EU hydrogen imports by 2040, which is equivalent to 1 million tons of hydrogen. Oman also has set some targets in order to produce clean hydrogen, which will increase from 1.25 million tons in 2030 to about 3.75 million tons in 2040, up to 8 million tons by 2050. Saudi Arabia, which is the big oil producer and exporter globally, would like also to play a role in both hydrogen and the ammonia For clean hydrogen production, Saudi has set a target to produce up to 2.9 million tons of blue hydrogen by 2030, which will be increased again to 4 million tons by 2040. And for blue ammonia, Saudi would like to be the biggest player in the market by 2030, producing what is equivalent to 11 million tons of ammonia. United Arab Emirates also was among the pioneers to invest in hydrogen in the MENA region, or Gulf region in particular. And now they have modified and they updated their targets to be among the top 10 hydrogen producers by 2031. And Egypt, which is of course also a potential player in the hydrogen market, would like to have about 5% of the global hydrogen market by 2040. Well, how we can translate these ambitious targets to be realities in the future? Of course, we have to proceed with some hydrogen strategies, hydrogen roadmaps, to have a clear targets with timeframes, and what are the potential sectors in which hydrogen can be used even locally in the MENA region. If we look here on the following map, which has been updated according to our market survey and the direct information from our member countries, we have today 2 countries that already published their hydrogen strategy. The first one was Oman, which announced its national hydrogen strategy as part of decarbonization strategy 2050 of Oman, and has been published or announced during COP in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt 2022. Algeria, just 2 months ago, has also announced its national hydrogen strategy in March, exactly 2023. As I mentioned, setting a target to have about 10% of the total EU hydrogen import by 2040. Other countries also includes Egypt, which has announced the framework of the hydrogen strategy, and Egypt is planning now to announce the revised strategy maybe in the incoming months. United Arab Emirates also has first published the roadmap of hydrogen, and now maybe we are just weeks away to announce the national hydrogen strategy. And Morocco as well has already published their hydrogen roadmap, and they are reviewing it, I think, and will have the revised one in the near future. So overall, we can see the number of Arab countries showing interest from political perspective is growing, and today we have 9 countries. 2 of them already published the national hydrogen strategy. 4 of them will publish the national hydrogen strategy in the incoming months, while the others, like Tunisia as an example, or KSA, Jordan, are working on the hydrogen roadmap. Now I move to the second part of my presentation. What we believe that we have some success factor to help us, or to help the MENA region to invest of hydrogen. If we are speaking about green hydrogen, or clean hydrogen, or renewable hydrogen, which is produced by electrolysis of water with the help of renewable energy sources, we can see here on the following maps that the Arab countries are characterized by unique characteristics related to the renewable energy sources. For the wind atlas, as an example, in some parts in the MENA region can reach between 9 to 11 meter per second, which is high and is needed to have a higher capacity factor of the electrolyzers fed by electricity generated from the wind farms. If we look to the solar radiation, I think the photo is clear. We have a solar radiation on average between 2,200 to 2,500 kilowatt per square meter, which means, again, higher capacity factor for the electrolyzers. And if we look also to the annual sunshine hours in the MENA region, we have an average sunshine hours of 3,900. So we believe that we have the required parameters to have a successful operation of the electrolyzers used in the production of hydrogen. And of course, we will have a very cost-competitive electricity generated to be used in this process. If we look to the oil and gas sector, which is our main sector, our core business till now in the market, we believe also there are 4 ways in which we can exploit the oil and gas sector to be the backbone of the blue hydrogen or blue ammonia in the future. First, the existing infrastructure. We have available infrastructure related to oil and gas, including refineries, pipelines, LPG vessels, which can be also used to transport ammonia from the MENA region to any market around the world. Of course, this will reduce the capital needed to invest in the hydrogen, and of course will help to improve the feasibility of the blue hydrogen project. Thanks to the accumulated knowledge that we have gained in the sector, we can apply them and upgrade them if necessary, that gained from the oil and gas sector. And of course, we have a skilled labor and the manpower, which is the critical assets need in order to develop the hydrogen economy. One of the most important parameters to be considered if we are looking to the blue hydrogen, since green hydrogen is not enough to meet the targets published or announced by many economies, we can exploit the huge data combined over decades of exploration and development activities, which will be needed for carbon storage associated or relevant with the blue hydrogen production. And of course, the availability of the feedstock, of the material, of the hydrogen, of the natural gas needed for the production of blue hydrogen. We believe that the Arab region is the most cost competitive producers of natural gas, as well as it will help us to produce cost competitive hydrogen. Here, we have used some data from International Energy Agency to provide an interpretation of this data to compare the cost of blue hydrogen in the MENA region with the other regions, including Russia or even European Union. And we consider here the gray hydrogen or blue hydrogen with the application of carbon capture and utilization and the storage, CCUS. So we can find here the Arab region or the MENA region in general, they can produce the blue hydrogen up to $1.4 per kilogram, or without the application of CCUS, it could be about $0.9 per kilogram, which is very low cost compared to other regions, including Russia, which exceeds $1, or even EU, which can reach up to $2. One significant parameter also to be considered is to convert the cost of the blue hydrogen into dollar per million BTU, just to have a comparison with the natural gas. So we can say that up to $13 per million BTU could be the cost of the blue hydrogen produced in the MENA region compared to natural gas, as we know that the prices now are going down, but we can say it could be so near from the natural gas. Just also for comparison purpose, we provide here a comparison between the green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, gray hydrogen, and the cost of the natural gas in the MENA region. We see that the green hydrogen, based on energy content, it could be about $30 to $31 per million BTU. Blue hydrogen, as I mentioned, could be about $13 per million BTU. Of course, in case of gray hydrogen, be lower, and the natural gas, we are among the most cheapest region in the world, which cost us about $3 per million BTU. Now I move to the last part of my presentations to provide you what are the current export plans and the production of hydrogen. According also to our survey here in WABIC, the number of announced projects in the hydrogen increased significantly to reach about 77 projects, which cover the entire ecosystem of hydrogen. About 55 projects are for clean hydrogen, including green hydrogen or ammonia. About 13 projects for blue hydrogen and the blue ammonia. There are also 2 proposed projects for transport of hydrogen between MENA region and Europe. Not only that, we have also some projects related to the applications of hydrogen for local use of hydrogen in the MENA region, including hydrogen refueling stations, bunkering for marine vessels, and also for aviation. At the country level, we can see here that Egypt topped the list of the announced hydrogen project, accounting itself for about 24 hydrogen projects, followed by United Arab Emirates, about 12 projects, Oman, about 11 projects, Saudi Arabia, about 10 projects, and many others, including Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, Iraq, Djibouti, Qatar, and Jordan. So in total, we have about 77 projects. As I mentioned, they are covering the entire ecosystem of the hydrogen from the production side, transport side, and also for the end-use applications. Some of these projects, not only announcements, they become, let's say, has gained some progress, remarkable progress. And if we look here to the green hydrogen projects in particular, we have NEOM hydrogen project, which will have a production capacity of 1.2 million tons of green ammonia, and the expected start-up date will be 2026. This project now has completed the financial close at $8.4 billion. EPC agreements already signed with Air Products, the American player, which worth about $6.7 billion. And there is an exclusive 30-year off-taker agreement has been secured also with the Air Products. In Oman, as I mentioned, Oman is ranked third in the number of announced projects in the MENA region. They have many projects now have been signed the binding agreements. One of them is the Oman Green Ammonia project in Dhaqm, in the port of Dhaqm. It will have a production capacity of 1.2 million tons of green ammonia and expected to start up the first phase of the project in mid-2025. This project has acquired already the land, about 80 kilometers square. Site construction already started. The term sheet with Hydrom, which is the state-owned governmental body, have already signed, which is a binding commercial agreements, and the project facilities orders already placed with the vendors, and the green hydrogen certificate has already obtained, highlighting that this project is a green project. On the other side, if we look to the blue hydrogen and the blue ammonia, we have some remarkable progress as well, including Qatar, which is our gas exporter and the producers, has already published the plan to produce a blue ammonia with the rate of 1.2 million tons. Startup is expected to be 2026. We have Ta'ziz blue ammonia project in United Arab Emirates, which will have a production capacity of 1 million tons per year. The startup expected to be 2025. And we have another project, that is Al Jubail blue hydrogen project, which is under development by Air Liquids. It will have a production capacity of 1,500 more or less ton of blue hydrogen per year, and expected start up to be 2025. By this, I conclude my presentations, highlighting that many Arab countries expressed their interest in hydrogen for both local use and as well as export, again to emphasize on their role as a global supplier of energy, whatever its form. Ammonia is the preferred option for export here from the region. Even there are two studies to use pipelines, but for the majority of the exported project in the Arab region, ammonia is the preferred option, thanks again to its higher energy density and the maturity, because we have a mature market for ammonia with many ports around the world already loading and unloading ammonia. And we believe, strongly believe, that Arab region or MENA region is on track to lead the green hydrogen and the green ammonia, blue hydrogen or blue ammonia market, with the first world-class projects like NEOM in Saudi Arabia, or Ta'ziz, or even the project for the blue ammonia in Qatar could come on stream in the few years to come. So my key message today, we think that we have a hydrogen market leader potential, but we believe that strong or let's say international research cooperation and the partnership with the key players in the market, we believe that they are preliminary steps needed to foster and have a faster hydrogen deployment in the Arab region. Thank you, and I'm ready to receive any questions from our audience. Thank you.
Our audience has also provided some questions for you. So the first one is, how will gas exporting nations transit to hydrogen future?
Well, this is a very important question indeed. But let me tell you what we believe regarding the gas future, in our opinion. We believe that gas is not a bridge for a future energy system. We believe that gas will be a major component of the future energy system. So there is no interference between investing in hydrogen or gas. This is point number one. Point number two, some of the key players in the gas markets, including Qatar, they are also looking to exploit the gas resources. As I mentioned in my presentation, we are a low-cost producer of gas. So Qatar has announced its plans to invest in the blue ammonia project. Other countries like Oman, which already LNG player, they believe that hydrogen may be needed in the local market because they don't have much resources of the natural gas, and they have commitments for LNG export for more than 1 decade from now. So they believe there is a market for hydrogen. Finally, I give another example for United Arab Emirates. If we look to the hydrogen roadmap, and we expect, as I mentioned, the hydrogen strategy of United Arab Emirates will be published soon, they really believe that United Arab Emirates had a market for hydrogen, and they started to invest in green hydrogen and green ammonia, and they have a market internally for that. So if we can say what will be the efforts of the gas exporting countries to proceed with both, keeping our exports, and if our clients or our markets would like hydrogen, they have the capability, since they have the resources to convert natural gas to blue hydrogen with the assistance of carbon capture and storage.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moati. And here's the second question. What is your hydrogen storage strategy? And how much capacity is needed, and where should it be located? Thank you.
It's a case by case. It depends on the project. There is no a common strategy for the MENA region to store hydrogen at a regional level. So it depends on the project. But as I mentioned again, according to the published or announced project, the majority of them for the production of ammonia. So ammonia is our preferred option to produce and export hydrogen. So of course, if we produce ammonia, we will have a sort of ammonia storage, thanks again to the higher storage density of ammonia, volumetric density of ammonia. So we can store equivalent quantities for how much hydrogen we would like to produce. And just I give here very quick information about the differences between the storage density of ammonia and the other options to export hydrogen, including compressed hydrogen or methyl cyclohexane, which is a part of liquid organic hydrogen carrier, or even liquefied hydrogen. We can look to the ammonia. 1 ton of ammonia or 1 kilogram of ammonia can have up to 120 kilogram. If we compare this amount to liquefied hydrogen, it will be reduced to be 70 kilogram. And if we look to the methyl cyclohexane as an example, it will be reduced to about 50 kilogram. So what I mean that ammonia will enable us to store a bigger quantities of hydrogen, and we have also our LPG vessels which can be used to transfer ammonia. So in conclusion, we believe according to our estimations that hydrogen storage option is to convert it to ammonia. And of course, we have also some depleted reservoir that can we use it if we plan to use the hydrogen in the local market directly. So we can use our depleted reservoir to store hydrogen in order to have a stable inflow of hydrogen to different sectors. I think there is a question from Mr. Jostein, our prominent speaker. He would like to ask something, if you can give him the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Moati. And here now we have a question from LinkedIn website. Our audience asked, where do you think is the best place for small companies to enter this place, especially for Western business?
So again,
or other cases. Thank you.
It depends on the business, what the business is. It depends. The business for for some pilot projects. I think Oman, Egypt, they are willing to receive this small project. Maybe the case in Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, they are looking more to the giga scale projects. So small companies, if would like to implement, even in Morocco, in North Africa, in Morocco, they are also welcoming. I think we have Dr. Samir will be the next speaker. He will tell us about the potential to attract the small companies in the hydrogen sector in Morocco, which is an example of the North African countries. But I think, as I mentioned, maybe Egypt and Oman would like to welcome any company who are interested to invest in hydrogen. As I told you, maybe Mr. Jostein would like to ask. I don't want to pass. Maybe he would like to add something to what I have presented in my presentation slot.
Well, thank you, Wael. I was just curious on the information you brought on the offtake contract between Aramco, if I was observing right, and Air Products for one of the projects. My question was, is that offtake, is the market for that offtake, is that locally or is it export?
Very good question. It is not between Aramco. It was the developer, which is the hydrogen, Neom Hydrogen Company, which is a joint venture equally between Aqua Power, Air Products. So the off-taker is Air Products. So let's say the battery limit is the port in Neom, and it will be for export, either in Europe or in Asian market. And this is already signed, an exclusive 30 years. That's why we believe that without off-taking agreement or of signing agreement with the potential customers, some of the announced hydrogen project, not only in MENA region, but globally, could be will not proceed to final investment decision. So the off-taker agreement already signed with Air Products, as I mentioned, 30 years, and the $8.4 billion, the capital investment of Neom project doesn't include the transportation cost or the transportation, let's say, segment of green ammonia that will be delivered to either Europe or Asian market. It's a responsibility of Air Products.
Yes, Mr. Moati and Mr. Karlsen. Can you hear me okay?
I'm fine, Julie, and I'm very pleased with the exchange with Wael on my question.
And here's also a lot of questions raised by our audience in the Q&A box.
Okay, would you like to read them, or you will take the... Okay, I see one question.
Just like some of them to answer.
Well, it's okay. So someone is asking about the advantages of blue ammonia compared to blue hydrogen. The storage capacity, you know, it depends on how much hydrogen you can store and export. So blue ammonia will be sourced from the blue hydrogen. So if you are using the hydrogen for the local market, okay, you can use directly the blue hydrogen produced from natural gas without the need to convert it or to manufacture ammonia. If you need to export hydrogen, liquefied hydrogen will be too expensive. There is no vessels in the market, only one by Kawasaki Industries. They already built the first ship, which is an experiment or a pilot project between Australia and Japan, as I remember. So there is no fleet for liquefied hydrogen, and it takes time in order to build the value chain. So in such case, blue ammonia could be a good option. As I mentioned, LPG vessels, liquefied petroleum gases vessels, can be used for the transportation of ammonia. Thanks to the physical properties of ammonia, they can be stored the liquid at minus 33 degrees. If we compare this to liquefied hydrogen, we need about minus 253 degrees. So it's another technology, complicated technology, more cost, of course, in case of liquefied hydrogen. So that's why we believe that blue ammonia could be the best option, as I mentioned, for storage, transportation of the hydrogen to the regional market or other markets. And if we use it locally, if we need ammonia for fertilizers production, we will use ammonia. But the better if we would like to have hydrogen directly at the gas, to use it as a gas, and we can store it in our depleted reservoir or even in compressed storage tanks. There is a last one, which just maybe to conclude with this part in which I mentioned that we have proceeded. Well, as I mentioned, we have many projects announced, 77 projects. Some of them already awarded the EPC contracts, like NEOM project. So many projects of the announced one, particularly United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and also Qatar, they are already, you can say, with the final investment decision, because EPC contracts already awarded in order to start construction in this project. So we have moved from announcements or announced project to projects under construction. And if I remember well, we have about 3 under construction projects related to blue hydrogen and the blue ammonia. They are under construction already in Qatar and the Saudi Arabia. And the remaining ones in Oman already have some commercial agreements, binding the commercial agreements. And some of them already started constructions, like that project with Acme, Indian company, which for the production of the green ammonia, 1.2 million tons of green ammonia per year. Back to you, Jolie. Thank you.
And for our audience, you are welcome to raise your questions in the Q&A and chat box. And for Ms. Moati and Mr. Karlsen, we would be really appreciative if you could stay longer and answer the Q&A box questions. And now, I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Quentin Dominic Blomart, Head of Hydrogen Diplomacy Office at Germany Agency for International Cooperation, who will be discussing German activities and adjacent topics in the MENA region.
Oh, you can see me, I suppose. Yes. Good afternoon from my end. This is this Quentin Blomart speaking from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And I think you can see my presentation in full screen. I have the pleasure to head the Hydrogen Diplomacy Office in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. It is a GIZ-led project. GIZ is the international German cooperation. The perspective that I will take is this from a GIZ perspective. If you allow me to continue, this is just the content I will propose for like 18-20 minutes that I have at my disposal. I will try not to repeat, not to overlap with the 2 excellent contributions of both Jostein and Wael, and I will try to build upon the contributions. Just from the background to the announced net zero targets, to the need to increase renewables drastically, and then come to the activities we have in the MENA region, and eventually closing up with some concluding words. Thus, what do we have at hand in the MENA region? It was highly, it's all good, right? Yeah. It was already mentioned by my colleagues. The whole MENA region enjoys vastest empty stretches, clear skies. It was highlighted with those different wind and solar maps that the renewables resources are simply standing. And as it was mentioned as well, we already have this infrastructures at hand within the MENA region. Of course, as the MENA is not homogeneous, here you have a lot of dissimilarities among them. We have some hydrocarbon-rich countries, others are deprived of hydrocarbon. But if we try to look also at the similarities, we might come to this growing population, which is an important parameter in my eyes, in addition to the environmental pressure that is at hand in the whole region. And all those similarities also speak for enhance economic diversification in the whole region that has been announced in the last years, even a decade. And this in sector that would not add pressure on the existing problems or issues, challenges we have in the region. What is key there is to create new revenue stream. Summarizing, excellent conditions in the region, but of course different challenges. And the key words in our eyes from a GIZ perspective is of course economic diversification. This has been announced from many countries, and I can refer to the Saudi Vision 2030, for instance, as a really milestone in terms of a text. From a German perspective, I mentioned this, that the MENA region, of course, is not homogeneous, and Germany itself is active throughout a lot of initiatives within the region. Myself, I'm with the GIZ. We have a lot of actors, those political foundations, the German chambers of commerce. All in all, Germany has a very strong presence in the MENA region, and for a good purpose. If I now directly move to different targets that were announced in the region, very impressive, as was highlighted both by Jostein and by Wael, just from Egypt to Oman, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. Net zero targets were announced with this very striking and national determined contribution, but also in terms of renewables capacities to be installed. And then we see a very strong commitment in general from the MENA countries. It's about, in the region, political and potential for economic growth, and at the same time also it's about this local employment to create this value chains within existing also economic tissues. There is a strong need just to align the upcoming or the ongoing hydrogen economy and the energy transition with, so to say, the future contributions. The question we might raise is how to achieve, so to say, a net zero. And here we thought of those four following steps. On the one hand, as it was already highlighted, there is a very strong need to increase the renewable energy shares within the energy mix. Parallel to this, there is a strong need further for energy efficiency, because this allows me to reduce my capex. As was mentioned by my colleagues, when we speak of hydrogen, which is the next rational step within the ongoing energy transition, the transition of the current energy system to a cleaner one. There will be also needs when it comes to CCU and CCS technologies. And at the end also of the chain, there is a need for recycling of all those products, items, goods, and to bring them back within the virtuous circle to be able to reuse and also achieve certain competitive advantages, not to have to extract again raw materials, but simply use what is already existing. It's a question of upcycling and valuing existing items. Speaking of renewables, it is not so easy in many cases, and we have been experiencing it from Latin America, but also through Europe. With renewables, we have a need for short-term storage, of course, but we have also a strong need to coordinate among the different actors dealing within the electricity grids within the countries to avoid curtailment, to avoid, so to say, stranded assets when it comes to installed capacities. An example might be in Chile nowadays. There are some financial problems because of too many installed capacities and not enough transmission lines just to bring the actual green electrons to the load centers. This is extremely central when taking all those steps to involve all the different actors, bring them to the table and have them discuss jointly who needs one within the chain of value creation when it comes to the boost of renewables, that is necessary to get those green electrons in surpluses, and in the end, later with the storage or transform it into another form like hydrogen or its derivatives. When we move again to the different projects that are already been announced or ongoing in the region, they were mentioned, and here I come back to what Wael mentioned with NEOM and the Helios project, but from the Emirates to Oman, to Algeria, but also Egypt, a lot is ongoing and supported, of course, by the increase in installed capacities in the whole region. An element that is very important in that regard is, of course, water. It is a water-stressed region, and this will involve the usage, of course, of even more desalination capacities, which means more power. Thus, we can have desalination powered by solar PV, for instance, but at the same time, we have to take care of the created material called the brine within the desalination process. And there, some more research still has to be done in that respect, and it concerns again, the whole region. That's the issue of the brine will be addressed, will have to be addressed by all MENA countries in general. As was already mentioned, at the time being, the overwhelming majority of the hydrogen produced so far is in gray form, only a very low percentage in its clean form. This is about to change throughout all the different projects announced. As Jostein rightly referred to, there is a need also for consumers and for contracts to be signed in order to secure investment. And there comes a first initiative from Germany, that's H2 Global, through which a double auction mechanism was proposed in order to mitigate risks between the actual producers and off-taker markets. Thus, H2 Global created a company, Hinco, that would buy hydrogen from outside of Europe at the lowest possible production price and would then resell it within European borders to the highest bidder. That's where the concept of double auction is from. And the similar concept will be normally announced at the European level. And again, the whole idea there is to come back to what Jostein mentioned. We need to create volumes, and to create volumes and reach more investments, we need to mitigate the actual risks. And that first initiative from the German side was an excellent one to trigger, so to say, incentive for both sides to get closer together and diminish the risks, which means the costs. Hydrogen will play, as we mentioned, in a way, more important role within the existing energy landscape. It might replace the existing grey hydrogen in refineries. In the building sector, it might replace the existing techniques for iron reduction. For the cement industry, it's the same in the ammonia, methanol, or even in the heavy transport sector. Hydrogen is set to play a huge role. As we had as a question, how to boost, so to say, the production of clean hydrogen that's in its green and blue form remains to be answered in the coming decades. Throughout all the projects announced by Wael before me and Jostein, there is a strong impetus, and every year or every month when publications are being released, we notice both in terms of number of projects plus the amount of money being involved, it is taking a critical level, which is very positive for the whole development within the hydrogen context. Worldwide, America is still the biggest user of hydrogen itself. Then comes Europe. But as we saw nowadays within Europe, with the different problems we have to face, and Germany, as an extremely energy-hungry country, had to continue boosting the different energy partnership, energy dialogues it has worldwide. Germany is a strongly depending country when it comes to hydrogen sources. It mainly only has brown coal or black coal. It has some coastal lines, but as a very densely populated country, similar to Belgium or Europe, it will be difficult to manage its own energy, to produce its own energy in the future. That's why Germany, within the last decade, has been boosting its relations with third countries through different models. I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, Germany is present through different initiatives worldwide. Myself, within GIZ, within the Hydrogen Diplomacy Office, I only represent one facet of the German presence abroad. But next to it, again, Germany aligns, so to say, its presence outside, and through this very strong presence through the German Chamber of Commerce, 150 worldwide, GIZ offices worldwide, Germany makes it to provide, so to say, nearly tailor-made support for German company to enter third markets, but also through the physical presence of its staff, GIZ, German of Chambers. Germany is better able to gauge and evaluate the actual needs within the countries. It's better able to engage on the spot with the different stakeholders, governmental, non-governmental institutions. And as myself in Saudi, we are better able also to act as a knowledge hub between the two sides, between, for instance, Saudi Arabia or MENA countries and Germany. Germany sees a strong interest in boosting, again, in the future, its energy ties with the MENA and especially with the GCC countries. And in that respect, more offices with a strong focus on hydrogen and energy in general were created. Usually you have the same kind of steps being made by establishing either within existing offices or simply new ones, small entities to promote renewables and hydrogen cooperation. Then we move on to sign memorandums if necessary to boost us the co-design, co-creation between the two sides, and then also enhance the exchange of experts between the two sides in order to practically implement projects and support the implementation of projects on the spot. And those projects were also mentioned by my colleagues previously. If I kind of sum up the different activities present in the region, that would be on the right side of the slide, and on the left side, all the different topics being addressed within the energy landscape by German institutions in the MENA region. The particularity with Germany is the holistic approach we are trying to take in order to encompass as many energy aspects as feasible. And to do so, we try also to involve as many stakeholders and to bring those stakeholders from different sectors together in order to reach the kind of sector coupling that is also needed within the energy transition. Thus, important here is to avoid bottlenecks, is to avoid mismatch between actual production and the actual needs. I mentioned the example of Chile. That's where we don't have strong enough transmission lines. Those kind of learnings should be also implemented, and this we can do because we also have colleagues, for instance, in Chile, with whom we are engaged in order to take the best learnings and implement them in the countries where we are here represented in the MENA region. For Germany, of course, it is central to secure a steady flow of energy supplies from the MENA region to Germany, and for this to provide the suitable technologies, but also the knowledge exchange itself has to take place in all those future oriented domains of activities. As I mentioned earlier, and I come to my conclusion, that renewables play a central role in the whole chain when it comes to the hydrogen economy. For the MENA region, it means this, to boost economic growth, to reach the stated industrial diversification, and to create local employment in a demographically growing area. And mechanically, then we can reach value creation and reduce at the same time those fiscal constraints. There are many advantages throughout renewables. We can divert hydrocarbons and simply use them for more valuable non-combustion purposes. Of course, we decarbonize the economy in key areas like industry and transport. Jobs is central for the whole region, and the GIZ is extremely happy to use, among others, its portfolio in that regard, providing technical, but also provide training measures within all the countries where we are active. And within our own project here in H2 Diplo, we try to boost academic exchanges between the two sides, between Saudi Arabia, Germany, and vice versa, in order also to co-create more between the two countries, to have an even larger win-win between Saudi Arabia and Germany. And at the end, of course, with the right and a pool of talents, with the right value chains, the ability to increase exports from the region to the outer world and increase, so to say, the revenue streams in general. Thus, Germany is extremely active in the region because it sees a lot of potential. It's also about geographic proximity, of course. The presence of German institutions is very strong. It is complementary. Thus, we ourselves from GIZ work very closely with the German chambers of commerce. If we need support from the German political foundations, we will do it as well, because they have another important overview of certain aspects we might not always have. And this complementarity, again, and it's my last word, highlight the holistic perception Germany has of the ongoing energy transition and the upcoming hydrogen economy. And I stop here and look forward for some questions. And sorry for the technical hitches.
Thank you, Ms.
Back to you,
Beaumont.
Julie.
Thank you, Ms. Beaumont, for your valuable insights into the German and MENA hydrogen analysis. We appreciate your valuable contribution to this discussion. And I believe we also have some pre-collected questions for you. The first, number one is, what is Germany's perspective on the price outlook for green hydrogen? And what action is it taking to improve its clean economy? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. For this, I directly refer again to the H2 Global initiative that started its actual implementation last November. H2 Global, again, is a double auction model through which you can mitigate risks and accordingly diminish the current estimated costs of the production of green hydrogen. This initiative has 900 million euros at its disposal, and that money will be increased up to a bit more than 4 billion starting from 2024. And with those kind of initiatives, and it might be repeated at the European level, we might decrease in the future the actual production costs for green hydrogen. It is still tricky nowadays. We mainly have forecasts, and those forecasts were presented by Jostein, were presented by Wael, but we might decrease even more those current estimated costs in the future by providing, next to the technicality and the decrease of costs, thanks to more efficiency of electrolyzers, even more efficient wind and solar technologies. We might also decrease costs by providing suitable financial instruments that are still kind of missing at the time being, again, to match the two sides, the producer sides in the countries like the ones we are speaking about today in the MENA region, with all those excellent natural resources and the main off-taker markets, not only Europe, but also in Asia and Japan, South Korea, to name an example. Let's come back to your question. It's difficult to mention an actual number. I can only refer to the estimates provided by Wael and Jostein.
Thank you, Mr. Beaumont, for a very informative answer. And thank you again for joining us today. Our next step of this journey today is Morocco, a country known for its commitment to renewable energy. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Samih Rashidi, Acting General Manager of the Research Institute for Solar Energy and New Energies in Morocco. Dr. Rashidi will be discussing the country's approach to cross-border hydrogen trade and its future as a prominent player in this industry. Dr. Rashidi, the floor is now yours to speak.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Chairwoman. I hope that everything is all right. Thank you so much for the kind invitation and the opportunity to speak, and also for the ability to put Morocco on the stage. I will try to share my screen if you allow me. I don't know if you see my screen. I hope that there are no technical issues for the moment. I will try to go to the... Can you see my screen correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect, thank you so much. So without any further ado, I would like just to take some seconds to introduce my institute. So IRISIN is the Research Institute for Solar Energy and New Energies. were created back in 2011 under the leadership of the Ministry of Energy, and we are playing two main roles: a role of deployment of regional infrastructure, upscaling, I would say, technological platforms, and also to play a role of a funding agency, trying also to bridge the gap between academia and industry. So if I have to summarize a bit what we are doing from the technology point of view, we are trying to test, adapt, and also improve internationally developed technologies to the local context, especially the one of Africa and more particularly the one of Morocco. So we have done this for PV and also CSP, and we are also trying to develop this for other applications on the whole, let's say, spectrum of the clean technologies. And on green hydrogen in particularly, we are also trying to develop a platform that is dedicated to the whole value chain, where the technology could be demonstrated from the whole value chain point of view at a megawatt scale. The idea is, as I said, to bridge the gap between the research and the industry, and try also to make the technology more mature. As you may know, in this complex value chain of green hydrogen, the technology is still a challenge, and it still needs to be upscaled. We have also done, I won't go into lots of details, lots of capacity building, training, and also developing expertise among Moroccan researchers during, of course, seminars, workshops, and also conferences. And we are trying to build also capacity and human capital, qualified human capital, to deal with those large scale projects. Of course, we are also developing concrete projects. This is a pilot project on the megawatt scale, 4 megawatt electrolysis capacity, 2 megawatt PEM, and 2 megawatt alkaline. And also the objective is to produce 1 ton per day of green ammonia, 1 ton per day of green ammonia, in order also to de-risk large scale projects in the future. Power to liquid is also one of the key technologies we are targeting, and we are developing also a megawatt scale pilot unit for e-kerosene, which is also a huge challenge when it comes to decarbonization of heavy duty mobility and especially aircraft industry. We are also pushing forward a feasibility study to do a mapping of the Moroccan potential in terms of geological hydrogen storage in caverns, in salt caverns, and we have some already existing potential in the region of Casablanca in Morocco. Now we are I will focus in the second phase to explain what we have done in the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years. We are trying to push green hydrogen on the global agenda here in Morocco. So the starting point was this study from the World Energy Council, where the Kingdom of Morocco was shortlisted among lots of other countries as one of the front runners that could play a big role in the power-to-X economy or the green hydrogen economy. And from this point of view, we have seen that the huge potential of Morocco was mainly due to its renewable potential, both solar and wind. We are really speaking about both energies when it comes to capacity factor for green hydrogen and other green molecules. Also a high level of engagement and commitment from the highest level of the state here in Morocco, a track record of hundreds of megawatt scale of renewable plants, and also a very important point, which is the business case of fertilizers in Morocco, which is led by the OCP group, which is one of the leading companies in the world in terms of fertilizers production and exports. And for this reason, the OCP is importing 2 million tons of ammonia per year, which is a big challenge towards decarbonization of OCP's activities, and which also provide a sort of a business case domestically here in Morocco, and also a potential of takers. So in terms of project development, this is something really important when we have a local need. Last but not least, let's say argument in terms of Moroccan potential is also the strong proximity to Europe and also connection, let's say energetically speaking, both on electrical aspects with two cables with Spain, and a third one under study with Portugal, but also from the pipeline point of view, from the gas infrastructure point of view, which we have already an existing pipeline between Europe and Morocco. And then since 2018, we have done some three important studies. Two first one were more like on a preliminary basis, and that was also with the support of the Moroccan German energy partnership, PAREMA, which had helped into developing those preliminary studies, and also to have a more in-depth study about the Moroccan hydrogen potential, which has resulted also on the green hydrogen roadmap, making Morocco one of or the first Middle East and African country to have published its hydrogen strategy. And let's say the hydrogen strategy or the roadmap was published back in 2021, and it's public, but mainly, let's say, this is the core finding of the roadmap, with a huge, let's say, potential in terms of, as I said, in terms of industrial domestic market, but also the other opportunity, and I'm sorry if it's not well represented here in terms of size, is the export. And for the export, we are really targeting lots of vectors for hydrogen. Of course, gaseous hydrogen, when the gas infrastructure or the hydrogen infrastructure in terms of pipelines and ports will be there. But we are also in the meanwhile targeting other molecules like ammonia or power to liquid molecules. Of course, other applications like heavy duty transport could also be brought to the table in Morocco in terms of domestic markets. I won't go into details for the roadmap. I will leave probably the audience to download it directly from the website of the Ministry of Energy Transition in Morocco. One last thing probably about the roadmap is the creation of a green hydrogen cluster, which is an association, a professional organization of private industrial sector, but also public institutions and some, let's say, universities and research centers that are here in Morocco working on the green hydrogen technologies. So you could go to the website of the Green Hydrogen Cluster to know more, and also if you would like to join as a member or as a partner, you are most welcome. This is now the last part of my presentation, and sorry for being a bit long. And the idea is to take you somehow throughout the hydrogen valleys of Morocco, or probably the hydrogen oasis. And this is the correct map, and I am taquiné my friend Quentin from the GIZ in Saudi, and this is a kind of strategic positioning, let's say geographic positioning between Africa and Europe, which can also bring lots of value for Morocco, but also for its allies and partner countries. So in terms of big potential, we have a huge potential of solar, as I mentioned, and this is something that is quite generalized on the whole territory of the Kingdom of Morocco. We have also huge wind potential, with a very, very, very nice wind potential in the south of the country, making probably one site here approximately near Dakhla, I will mention it afterwards, one of, or if not the best site in the world in terms of LCOE and also LCOH, low cost, levelized cost of electricity and hydrogen, which is also a very, big argument in terms of deployment of large scale hydrogen. One challenge, however, and this is something that probably the wind and solar could be also find in any other places, but the quality of this combination is really unique for Morocco. But one, let's say, problem that we have is the infrastructure. So we are having some ports and maritime nodes and infrastructure. However, as you may know, we are not an oil and gas country, so we don't have enough gas and pipeline infrastructure, which is will be a key enabler for Morocco and the challenge we need to work on. An opportunity also for Morocco, but also for its partner is really, and I am bringing here the value chain of the power to X or the green hydrogen, which is also an opportunity to co-localize the value. Both for the upstream, the production of electrons, of green electrons, and also the water, but also the production of hydrogen through electrolysis and the middle and downstream in terms of conversion of green hydrogen to other molecules. So heavy chemistry, heavy green chemistry, heavy green industry, and also the offtake that will allow also some end uses that are helping decarbonizing the economy as a whole. So let's go through some hydrogen valleys in Morocco. So Tangiers could be a very nice site or a pilot site for a bunkering application. We have nice wind and nice solar in Tangiers as well, and also the close connectivity to Europe. The picture or the land you are seeing from the picture in the in the top of the picture is Spain, so like 10 miles away from Morocco. Casablanca, which is a very big industrial, let's say, hub, could also benefit and have lots of end users or off-takers of hydrogen to involve them in their chemical or industrial processes. Also the electricity storage as well application. The Joflasfar chemical complex, which is an hour driving south from Casablanca, where the green hydrogen and application platform will be located, and where in fact there is the 2 million tons of ammonia that are imported every year. So this is something also to be mentioned in terms of potential of upscaling technologies. To the south also we have the region of Laayoune with a big program of OCP as well, a big fertilizer site there, and also a huge potential in terms of solar and wind, as I said, and some already existing infrastructure. Last but not least, the Dakhla, as I said, and I'm sorry for my fellow colleagues, the best site in the world to produce competitive high added value green hydrogen with a big port that is being under construction and will be delivered around 2027 with an investment worth around 1.2 billion euros. Last but not least, I would mention probably three main examples of having Morocco as a leading, let's say, country in this economy. The first of all, the very ambitious project of the OCP to produce 1 million ton of green ammonia by 2027. This will represent approximately 4 gigawatts of installed capacity in terms of renewables, and also 2 gigawatts approximately of capacity in terms of electrolyzers. And this will also offer the opportunity to, as I said, co-localize industrial value chain, high added value value chain, and also give an example. The Jean Coqueril, which is a Belgian company, has announced in early 2023 this year their willingness to produce or to have a gigafactory of electrolyzers in Morocco with a private partner. So this is to say that we have somehow, as lots of countries in the region, the planets that are aligned, and that we have a nice context for having a positive context to large-scale deployment of green hydrogen and derivatives. Thank you so much, and sorry for being long.
Dr. Rashid, thank you very much for your valuable insights into this fascinating topic. And here also we have some questions arise from our audience. The first one is, in your words, how to make hydrogen bankable?
This is $1 billion question. This is really complicated to answer. There are lots of elements. Unfortunately, we cannot explain them in an answer or a simple answer. But let me start probably with first of all, I think, in my opinion, a very good regulation and certification kind of framework. Because now this is somehow the growing issue, and this is also backed or should be backed by a very intensive international collaboration. We cannot do anything alone. So even in terms of exporting countries, one country is not enough. The market as a whole is really huge, and we need all of our countries, our potential exporting countries, to satisfy the market. But also from the importing point of view, importing countries' point of view, we need also to align on how we should progress in terms of regulations and norms and standards and certification issues, which could also block or make the trade slower, and also make the triggering of the hydrogen economy take some time, more time, unfortunately. And we are confronted to a very big urgency, as you may know, for the climate change, but also with the energy crisis we are witnessing. A second thing would be probably, in my opinion, the upscaling of industry, especially some bottlenecks as electrolyzers. These are, let's say, the heart of or the backbone of this complex value chain, and we need to upscale the industry of electrolyzers. Last but not least, probably is to in countries like Morocco, is also to help build capacities, but also develop some technology and innovation in order also to keep up with technology, since we don't have yet, which we are not certain in a way on which technology will prevail or which technologies will prevail. So these are all technologies under development, and we need also that exporting countries take part in this, because it's also a way to build capacity, to co-localize value, but also to qualify a human capital that will lead those projects in a win-win basis with the partners.
Thank you, Dr. Rachidi. Thank you very much for a very informative answer.
My
and
pleasure.
thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And also, I want to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers and participants for making this webinar a success. Your contribution were truly invaluable, and the experience was nothing short of amazing. Although we've reached the end, I want to thank you again for your significant contributions. And we'll be sharing the video and the slides of today's webinar with all participants next Monday, along with a brief summary. If you have any queries, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at julie@leaderassociate.com. Today's webinar is held in partnership with Connecting Green Hydrogen MENA 2024. The largest hydrogen event in the MENA region. This event will take place in Dubai from April 23rd to 25th, 2024, and will feature over 3,000 participants and over 150 world-class speakers, including decision makers, energy ministers, and CXOs from more than 50 countries. Thank you for joining us today and being a part of the Impact webinar. If you have any feedback or ideas or wish to collaborate with us to amplify our efforts toward accelerating the energy transition, please feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to your participation in future webinars as well as physical events. Thank you.